I almost didn't go to Malaysia. I had Vietnam booked, I had my hostels picked, I had the coffee shop playlist ready. Malaysia was the place I'd fly through the transit lounge between Bangkok and Singapore. That's what I thought. That's what most people think. I know what you're thinking right now. Malaysia. It's fine. It's not as exotic as Bali. Not as famous as Bangkok. Not as cinematic as Ha Long Bay. And that is exactly what I thought, too, until a single afternoon in Penang's Georgetown rewired everything. And when I actually sat down and compared the numbers after visiting both countries back to back in 2026, I felt genuinely embarrassed about how wrong I had been. I've done Vietnam. I've done Thailand, Bali, Japan, Singapore. I'm not coming at this fresh. I'm coming at this having seen the alternatives firsthand, which means I've earned the right to tell you what I'm about to tell you. This is Malaysia versus Vietnam. And one of these countries wins so clearly that the real question isn't which one, it's why nobody is talking about it. Let's start with cost, because this is where everyone gets it backwards. Vietnam looks cheaper. That's not an argument, it's a fact. Hanoi and Ho Chi Minh City will consistently show up below Kuala Lumpur on the surface numbers. A bowl of pho for $1. A room for 12. Coffee for 50 cents. It's intoxicating, especially in the first 2 weeks. But here's what the highlight reel doesn't show you. Daniel is a software developer from Vancouver. He picked Ho Chi Minh City for his remote work base because every digital nomad forum told him it was the play. He lived there for 3 months. His rent was low. His food was cheap. And then he started adding up the things the forums don't mention. A VPN subscription because half the tools he used for work were throttled or blocked. The co-working space he eventually had to rent because cafe Wi-Fi was too unstable for client calls. The private clinic visit because the public hospital system, while technically accessible, operates in a language and a system that took him 6 weeks to partially navigate. The flights he kept taking to Bangkok when he needed a visa run. When Daniel moved to Kuala Lumpur 8 months later, his monthly spend actually went up slightly in absolute terms. But what he got for that money went up by a factor he said he couldn't have predicted. Fiber internet that ran at consistent gigabit speeds. A visa framework that was actually designed with long stays in mind. A healthcare system KPJ, Pantai, Prince Court that operates in English, uses internationally recognized standards, and doesn't require a translator. He told me, the extra $200 a month felt like a raise. The Numbeo Cost of Living Index for 2026 puts Kuala Lumpur ahead of Ho Chi Minh City on the value to quality ratio, specifically, not just the raw number. That distinction matters enormously when you're living somewhere rather than photographing it. Now, Vietnam sells the digital nomad dream better than almost anywhere on earth. The cafes are beautiful. Da Nang has the beach. The aesthetic is unmatched. I will not argue that. But here's what the aesthetic hides. Sarah is a UX designer from London. She picked Da Nang specifically. She'd seen the photos, she'd done the research, she'd packed her standing desk adapter. In her first 6 weeks, she missed 3 client deadlines, not because of her work, but because of connectivity. The speed would drop mid-video call. The backup mobile data would lag. She tried 4 different co-working spaces. She tried 2 different SIM providers. The problem wasn't the specific cafe or the specific provider, it was the infrastructure ceiling. She moved to Penang 2 months into her 6-month plan. She described the difference as, Da Nang was a vibe, Penang as a system. Ookla's Global Speed Test Index from 2025 ranks Malaysia in the global top 30 for fixed broadband speed. Vietnam sits outside the top 50. That gap is not aesthetic. That gap costs you clients. And then we get to food, which is where I expected Vietnam to absolutely destroy Malaysia. I was completely wrong about who wins this, and here is why. Vietnam's food is world famous for a reason. Pho, banh mi, bún bo huế, sao lao. I am not going to stand here and diminish it. The depth of Vietnamese culinary tradition is real, it is earned, and it is extraordinary. But Vietnam has depth in one tradition. Malaysia has depth in 4 running simultaneously, on the same street, at the same price point. At 7 in the morning in Georgetown, Penang, you can smell curry leaf hitting hot oil before you can see the stall. The sound of a wok on open flame wok hay, that slightly smoky, slightly sweet char that only comes from a seasoned iron wok at the right temperature comes from 3 different directions. There is a char kway teow stall on Lorong Bahru that has been run by the same family since 1956. The queue starts at 6:45. You don't care that you're queuing because you can smell what you're queuing for. Priya is a food blogger from Mumbai. She went to Vietnam expecting her favorite food trip of her Southeast Asia run. She left Malaysia 1 month later calling it, in her words, the most underrated food destination on earth. The specific thing that converted her wasn't a fine dining experience or a chef's table moment. It was the roti canai ecosystem she found in Kuala Lumpur's Brickfields neighborhood, the sheer variety of styles, the price point, the fact that it was available at 11 p.m. from a stall that had a loyalty customer base measured in decades rather than followers. Georgetown's food culture holds a UNESCO World Heritage designation. It is one of only 3 cities in Southeast Asia with intangible cultural heritage food traditions formally recognized at that level. That is not a travel blog claim. That is UNESCO. But food can be learned. Infrastructure can be built. What I'm about to show you is what you cannot manufacture, and it is the real reason Malaysia is winning a competition most people don't even know is running. If you're the kind of person who needs the real numbers before you make a decision, not the highlight reel, not the sponsored content, the actual data, you're exactly who this channel exists for. Subscribe now. We're only halfway through this, and where we're going next is where most travel channels won't go. Let's talk about safety. Not crime statistics, road statistics. Vietnam's traffic is legendary. Ho Chi Minh City's motorbike density is one of the highest on the planet. For the first week, it is one of the most exhilarating things you will ever experience. The flow, the negotiation, the organized chaos, it is genuinely fascinating. After 3 months, the accident statistics start to feel personal. James is a retired secondary school teacher from Melbourne. He was doing a retirement research trip across Southeast Asia, Vietnam, Thailand, Malaysia. In Ho Chi Minh City, he witnessed a motorbike collision at an intersection 50 meters from his guest house. Nobody was seriously hurt. But something shifted for him. He started reading the numbers. The WHO Global Road Safety Report from 2024 places Vietnam's road fatality rate significantly above Malaysia's per 100,000 of population. James wasn't afraid of Vietnam. He just started doing the math on probability across a longer timeline. He ended up in Ipoh, in Malaysia's Perak state. He told me he pays less per month than a mid-range retirement in Chiang Mai would cost him. He has a JCI-accredited hospital within a 20-minute drive. He plays golf twice a week at a course that would cost 3 times as much in Australia. He said, "I didn't come to Malaysia to retire, but I think Malaysia came to me, and now I need to tell you something that I suspect will make you angry." It made me angry. Because there is a narrative being actively pushed about Southeast Asia that is quietly, consistently, and almost entirely wrongly steering people away from Malaysia. And it is almost completely manufactured. The narrative is this: Malaysia is boring. It's a transit country. It doesn't have the authenticity of Vietnam or the excitement of Thailand. It's somewhere you pass through, not somewhere you go to. Let me tell you who benefits from that narrative. Western travel media runs on visual content. Bali gives you the rice terrace. Hanoi gives you the street food alley. Thailand gives you the full moon party. These places package beautifully into a 15-second clip. Malaysia, with its blend of four cultures, its modern skyline next to colonial shophouses, its food courts that look chaotic and taste transcendent, is harder to compress into a hook. So the algorithm ignores it. And when the algorithm ignores a place, the travel media follows. And when the travel media follows the algorithm, the narrative becomes, "This place is not worth your time." Here's what that narrative erases. Malaysia is the only country in Southeast Asia with a functioning multiracial constitutional democracy that has peacefully transferred power at the federal level. Kuala Lumpur's KLIA was ranked Asia's 5th best airport by Skytrax in 2025, ahead of Bangkok's Suvarnabhumi, ahead of every airport in Vietnam. The World Bank Logistics Performance Index from 2023 ranks Malaysia 27th globally. Vietnam ranks 43rd. Malaysia's GDP per capita on a purchasing power parity basis is nearly 3 times Vietnam's. 3 times. That wealth infrastructure is visible the moment you land. The roads. The hospital corridors. The broadband cables running into apartment blocks in cities that aren't even the capital. The most underrated country in Southeast Asia isn't underrated because it failed. It is underrated because the algorithm never learned how to film it. Now let's talk about what you actually experience when you travel. Vietnam's most famous sites are being loved to death. Ha Long Bay is one of the most photographed places on Earth, and UNESCO has formally flagged its overtourism burden. Hoi An's ancient town reaches capacity most evenings during peak season. The experience is still beautiful. But you are experiencing it in a crowd. Amir is a travel photographer from Dubai. He went to Ha Long Bay specifically for the iconic sunrise shot, the limestone karsts in the morning mist. He got it. He also got it alongside approximately 200 other photographers on the same sunrise cruise, running the same preset, framing the same composition. He told me the shot exists. He also told me it felt like photographing a theme park. 2 months later, he went to Tioman Island off Malaysia's east coast. He said, "I have never felt more alone with something beautiful in my entire career as a photographer." The Cameron Highlands. The Perhentian Islands. Borneo's Danam Valley, one of the last intact lowland dipterocarp rainforests on the planet, with a biodiversity density that rivals the Amazon. Georgetown's Heritage Quarter at 6 in the morning, before the tour groups arrive. These experiences exist. They are world-class. And they are operating at a fraction of Vietnam's crowd density. So here is my honest verdict. After the costs, the infrastructure, the food, the safety margins, the hidden places, here is where I actually land. Vietnam wins if you're backpacking for 3 weeks on a shoestring and you want total immersion in a single culture's food and history and energy. It is extraordinary for that. The solo travel experience in Vietnam is among the best in the world. The raw cinematic beauty of the North, the Sa Pa terraces, the Mekong Delta, the old quarter of Hanoi is genuinely irreplaceable. But if you are thinking about 3 months, or a year, or a life, Malaysia is not the second choice. It is the smarter choice. It wins on infrastructure. It wins on food diversity. It wins on long-term livability. It wins on safety margins. It wins on value per dollar at the comfortable tier of spending, not the floor. I flew back into KLIA from Noi Bai on a Tuesday morning. The terminal contrast alone told the story. Not because Vietnam's airport is bad, it isn't. But because KLIA is a statement. It is a country showing you, in architectural terms, what it thinks of the people who pass through it. And then you get to Kuala Lumpur, and you realize it built the whole country that way. Subscribe. We have a video dropping this week on a Southeast Asian destination that nobody in this space is covering, and when you see the data, you will understand why that silence is its own story. And now I need you to settle something in the comments, because I genuinely want to know where you land on this. Is Malaysia Southeast Asia's most underrated country? Or do Vietnam and Thailand still have the edge when you put everything on the table? Pick a side. Make your case. I read every single comment, and the best argument down there might just become the next video.